This is 16 times One Piece characters got serious. Starting with one of the most satisfying moments in One Piece, we have Luffy knocking out a celestial dragon. During the Sabaody Archipelago arc, we got introduced to the celestial dragons, descendants of the 19 of the first 20 kings who established the world government as we know it today. The celestial dragons, being one of the most feared and despised people, often get away with the most vile of acts because they're backed by the entire strength of the world government. Look at a celestial dragon the wrong way, and you might find yourself on the wrong end of a buster call. Which is every end of a buster call. Which is why when Luffy punched St. Charlos in the face for shooting his friend Hachi, it got really serious for those in attendance. Like, dude, I think even the audience felt that one. Now, for this next one, we have one that will chill you to your very bones. Following the events of the Reverie arc, Boa's warlord status was revoked, meaning that she was an open target for the Marines, but they weren't the only ones interested in raiding Amazon Lily at the time. In what looked to be a three-way battle, the Blackbeard pirates entered Amazon Lily with the hopes of stealing her devil fruit power for themselves, as well as Captain Kobe from the Marines coming to capture her. And while Blackbeard gets a hold of Boa, everything would be interrupted by the one and only Silvers Rayleigh. Rayleigh, being the infamous first mate of the former king of the pirates, Gol D. Roger, had enough of a reputation to scare off even an Emperor of the Sea. And while Rayleigh did admit that he was bluffing, it just goes to show you how serious it gets when someone like Rayleigh steps onto the battlefield. It's only fitting that Teach's Yami Yami no Mi is no match for the King of Darkness himself. Despite the stalemate, the Blackbeard pirates are still one of the strongest forces in the One Piece world, with perhaps one of the literal coldest victories on the planet. Needing to keep up with the other emperors when it came to poneglyph readers, the Blackbeard pirates needed to find a way to decipher them in order to get to the last island, Laughtail. To do that, two of the Blackbeard Pirates' strongest members, Kuzan and Van Augur, raided Cacao Island to capture Big Mom's future poneglyph reader, Pudding. Setting the scene for Pudding's eventual capture, Cacao Island being covered in ice with Cracker being a sole defender left meant that Kuzan wasn't playing around when they decided on their next course of action. I mean, after all, this is the same Admiral Akoiji that froze the sea way back before the events of Water 7. If you're face to face with an opponent that can terraform oceans and islands in mere seconds, you know you're in for a bad time, even though you're one of Big Mom's strongest. The Admirals are one of the most powerful fighters in the One Piece world, and Kuzan isn't the only one who's shown off how strong they can be. Coming up next, we have the introduction of another Admiral, Kizaru. When we got introduced to Aokiji, we got to know how powerful the Admirals are. After all, they're known as the most powerful forces in the military, so knowing that there are 3 other equally powerful Admirals, it's not surprising that it gets serious when another one enters the fray. Entering the Sabaody Archipelago on a cannonball of all things, Kizaru was sent there in response to Luffy punching a celestial dragon. Being the answer to a serious offense in the One Piece world, Kizaru then proceeded to destroy the super rookies known as the Supernovas single-handedly. Mind you, the Supernovas are considered the rising stars of the pirate world, with notable members such as Luffy, Law, and Kid. While these celestial dragons are unassuming at first, it just goes to show you the severe consequences of harming just one. And it's always going to be serious when the most powerful of military forces are involved, but even they have limits too. In the Summit War of Marineford, we got to see how powerful an Emperor of the Seas crew can be versus the Navy's stronghold. The war took many lives, with Whitebeard taking most of the damage in the hopes of saving Ace from execution. Unfortunately for the Whitebeard pirates, the war wouldn't be in their favor, with Ace and Whitebeard eventually falling in the aftermath. With the Navy hellbent on wiping out the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, only another emperor can put an end to the already drawn-out war. Coming in to prevent the Navy from desecrating Whitebeard and Ace's bodies, Shanks dared anyone who was still willing to fight to go at them, with even the then fleet Admiral Sengoku standing down. You just knew that nobody's willing to mess with the Red Hair pirates. We've yet to see Shanks' full power, but knowing he was considered Mihawk's rival and took down Rito Kogyu with Conqueror's Haki alone, you know something's about to go down when even the higher-ups shiver at the mere mention of Shanks' name. When you're raised from infancy in the former Pirate King's ship, you're bound to pick up a few tricks. But if we're talking about the times that characters got serious and severely undermined the authority of a powerful figure in the world, we can't forget about our next entry. Following the events of the Fishman Island saga, Jinbei told Luffy that he had to take care of something first before eventually joining the Straw Hat crew. Fast forward a few arcs later, and we come to find out that he's actually part of Big Mom's crew with the hopes of adding an extra layer of protection for Fishman Island. Of course, that wouldn't stop Jinbei from eventually quitting and joining the Straw Hats. Jinbei wasn't quite successful in his first attempt to leave the Big Mom Pirates, but on his second attempt after crashing Pudding and Sanji's wedding, we got to see one of the most intense moments in all of One Piece. With Big Mom's imposing stature and notoriety, it's fitting that her devil fruit, the Soru Soru no Mi, ends up being used a lot, with most pirates knowing well enough to fear an Emperor of the Sea. However, when trying to use it on Jinbei to steal his life essence, it failed to work, with Jinbei flat out saying that he's not afraid of a mere emperor when he's going to be a part of the future Pirate King's crew. Talk about fighting words. Rewinding a bit back to the events that showed how strong the Straw Hat crew eventually became after the time skip, we have Luffy demolishing a pacifista. After the events of the Sabaody Archipelago, Luffy was left separated from his crew due to the interference of the then warlord Bartholomew Kuma. After a few arcs, the crew eventually went back to Sabaody after 2 years of training. Having mastered all 3 forms of Haki, Luffy had opportunities to display his newfound powers, but perhaps one of the most impressive shows of progress was him evading the beam projectiles from a PX unit. With the lasers coming in at light speed, Luffy displayed an enormous amount of foresight and reflexes to be able to dodge multiple incoming projectiles, further cementing that they're not the same Straw Hats that were separated easily before the time skip. Considering Luffy trained with one of the most proficient users of Haki in the One Piece world for 2 years, yeah, it's safe to say that they were going to be fine in the new world after reuniting in Sabaody. The amount of growth displayed by the crew during the time skip was unbelievable, and that was just the tip of the iceberg for them. Mastery of Haki alone has let people like Goldie Roger, Silvers Rayleigh, and Shanks to conquer the seas and make their names known throughout the entire world. So how does it fare for someone who was awakened Conqueror's Haki at a young age? Coming in next, we have Doflamingo unlocking Conqueror's Haki as a kid. Now, you can argue that Haki is a rare form of power that few possess, but in the new world, you're bound to see people using armament and observation Haki from time to time. Conqueror's Haki, on the other hand, is special in the sense that it's only possessed by those who have a strong urge to change the world. With only a very small percentile of the world possessing Conqueror's Haki, let alone mastering it, Doflamingo awakening it in his childhood years was certainly special and signaled to the people torturing his family that they're bound to be in danger after all that's been done. From there on, Doflamingo caught the eyes of his soon-to-be executives and cut off his remaining family ties to establish one of the most formidable pirate crews in the New World. The use of a rare type of Haki allowed Doflamingo's pirate career to kick off in style, and which eventually led him to become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Now, the 7 warlords of the sea are known for their power, which is why the world government has allowed them to run wild in the hopes of them kind of helping them do what marine forces won't. Considering the strength and reputation of the warlords, what would happen if 2 former warlords fought? Well, following the events of the Wano Country arc, the supernova trio of Luffy, Law, and Kid went on their separate ways, with the latter 2 ending up in different fights against 2 of the 4 emperors of the sea. With the hunt for the poneglyphs raging on and elite-level pirate crews getting closer to the Laugh Tale, it was inevitable for Law to eventually meet one of the primary contenders for the One Piece, Blackbeard. Knowing how much Blackbeard likes to collect devil fruits, the power had a lot at stake, with Law using the same techniques he used against Big Mom to try and take down another Emperor of the Sea. Understanding that Blackbeard is the same man that scarred Shanks, it's no surprise that he came out as the victor, with the Law barely escaping with his life. With Teach's Yami Yami no Mi and Gura Gura no Mi, it's not surprising that he rose up in the pirate world and defeated some of the greatest. However, Teach isn't the only emperor who has displayed feats of strength after the time skip. Coming off from a 2-year time skip, Luffy learned how to consciously use his Conqueror's Haki, and there was no better way to show it off than their fight against Hody Jones. Seeing the massive amount of forces Hody Jones has, Luffy displayed tremendous amounts of strength, successfully cutting down enemy forces by half with just one move. Considering they were initially fighting against 10,000 forces, that's an impressive feat, and surely contributed to the Straw Hats' victory on Fishman Island. Not only is the raw strength of Luffy's Haki enough to knock 5,000 of Hody Jones' forces out, the technique in which he used it further solidifies the result of his training with Rayleigh. It's been said that Haki is what you need to conquer the world, and if that statement by Kaido is true, then Luffy's mastery of it and the raw power exerted might just be enough to propel him towards his goal of King of the Pirates. Of course, Luffy isn't the only powerhouse in the Straw Hat Pirates. One other member was capable of immense combat prowess. Debuting in the Enies Lobby arc, Chopper's Monster Point was truly a sight to behold, but there was a reason why he had to have it as a last resort only move. In his fight against Kumadori of CP9, Chopper was mere moments away from death when he was contemplating on whether or not he goes to the next level in order to get the victory. Going into his Monster Point form meant that losing control over his body for the next couple of minutes would be worth it for that extra boost in strength, or at least that's what he thought. Of course, knowing that he had to take that risk, eventually he beat Kumadori, and while he got away with the victory, it also meant that Frankie needed to blast him into the seas so he could be pacified. Talk about making a splash. That Monster Point not only can dish out punishment, but it can surely take it as well. Speaking of being able to dish out punishment, our next entry surely packs a punch. After Ace passes away in Marineford at the hands of Akainu, an enraged Whitebeard appears from behind and absolutely crushes the Admiral with an overhead fist, driving his head into the pavement. Take note that we're talking about one of the Navy's strongest here, and Whitebeard just casually gives him the beating of a lifetime, with Akainu being visibly scared for his life. While the skirmish did result in Akainu punching another hole into Whitebeard, the few seconds of Whitebeard swatting Akainu like a fly was one of the most powerful displays of raw strength. While Whitebeard did give Akainu the worst beating he's probably ever had, that didn't stop the Admiral from providing the One Piece world with a father-son donut combo. Of course, it's to be expected that an Emperor and an Admiral would do some serious damage to each other, but how would it look like if two other pirates from the worst generation were to duke it out? While on the road to retrieve his lost sword, Zoro came across the slasher known as Kamazo, the Manslayer, who was secretly Killer from Kid Pirates. And of course, at the same time, Zoro was still in the middle of a battle with Gyukimaru, the sword thief, so it was essentially a 2v1 situation. At a disadvantage and missing a sword, Zoro made use of his situation by bracing himself as Killer plunged his scythe at him. This worked out well for Zoro though, as the blade was dug deep enough that Killer wouldn't be able to pull it back out for further use. And as luck would have it, Zoro would be able to fight in his more comfortable 3-sword style and end the fight with a Rengoku Onigiri for the win. It's no secret that Zoro's strength is a key part of who he is, but stealing your opponent's blade by having it stay stuck in your body, yeah, that's surely one for the books. With a strong first mate comes a strong captain as well. After all, the captain demands respect from his crewmates, and being fearless in the face of 2 emperors will certainly cement himself as someone to be revered. Upon reaching the top of Onigashima, Luffy reunites with Zoro along with 3 other members of the worst generation, Killer, Law, and Kid. However, before he starts the fight, he does one of the most fearless things in One Piece and walks past the 2 emperors to make sure that the members of the Akasia 9 are doing fine. Despite understanding the immediate threat posed by 2 powerful pirates, that's underselling it by the way, Luffy knew what to prioritize before knocking down Kaido moments later in one hit and telling both him and Big Mom off that he is going to be the king of the pirates. Top 10 moments in the show for me, dude. Like, if there were any doubts about Luffy's destiny of becoming king of the pirates, this moment surely dispelled all of those post-haste. No normal human being would simply walk in between 2 opposing figures like Big Mom and Kaido, but Luffy being destined to become the king is not an ordinary human being. But This next scene is also super serious. During the Marineford War, there's a scene where all the Whitebeard pirates are attacking Akainu with all they got all at once. Just an endless amount of bullets, rockets, and everything all hitting Akainu. And when they finally stop, Akainu just comes out walking out of the smoke, head down, chunk of his body just clean blown off. That's the definition of power right there. Before we get into the last one though, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more epic content like this. Of course, when it comes to truly serious feats of power in the One Piece world, it has to go to one of the ancient weapons. The ancient weapons have been hinted at all the way back in Alabasta. After all, Crocodile went as far as to destabilize a whole country just to get a hint of where one was. And while we've gotten hints of how powerful they can be, with some of the more informative examples being Shirahoshi's command over the Sea Kings, it wasn't until shortly after the raid on Onigashima where we bore witness to just how devastating the ancient weapons truly are. With just one hit from a mother flame fueled ancient weapon, the entire kingdom of Lulusia was obliterated after an intercepted call from Sabo and the revolutionary armies. Of course, Imu being the show's overarching villain, it makes sense that a weapon capable of destroying whole islands and flooding the world from one use is in their hands. Anyway, if you don't want Imu to use the ancient weapon on your house, make sure you watch this video next. Thank you for watching.